The resident joining.
Cindy Gray.
Hi, Terry. This is Byron Smith. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good.
This is Cindy Gray. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Cindy. The resident joining.
Cindy Gray.
Yes.
Hi, Terry. This is Byron.
Mayor, maybe you should talk. I don't know why they're not hearing me.
All right. Can everyone on Zoom hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
All right. Give me just a second here. We got to get everything up and streaming. And then these hybrid meetings are fun. All right. So I've got 7:01. So we will call the August 12th Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. And we'll do roll call. I am here, Mr. Hankinson. I haven't seen him on Zoom yet, so he might be on a run. Mr. Looney.
Here.
All right, Mr. Mauger.
Present.
Ms. Williamson.
Here.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
All right, we got a quorum. Terry, you're taking notes, right? As
Yes,
well.
I am.
All right.
No problem.
Terry is on Zoom. And then Brandy McCreary, who's on planning and zoning, is also here. Our first agenda item is our approval of minutes from both August 13, 2020 and May 13 of 2021. And the August 13 one took some memory on review.
On the meetings for May 13th of 2021, on page 6, there was something that did not sit right with me there. At the top of the page, it had to do with the fence between the two sisters over on Cliff Street.
Okay.
This is where we were talking about allowing them to go and get started with the process, even though we hadn't talked to their neighbor yet. And it said, says the mayor said he did not think it would be inappropriate for the commission to hold a vote on whether or not they are okay with not putting up a fence between two properties. What we were doing was allowing the fence to cross over the property line. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think that needs to be adjusted there.
Got it.
Now, wait, we agreed for there didn't have to be a fence between their two properties was one issue. The other was the fence on the property line to the non-related neighbor. And what the mayor was saying was we could go ahead and tell them that we could make the decision about the fence between the two sisters without waiting to hear from the neighbor.
Yes.
Yes.
Because they had two variances. One was for the setback and one was for the fence between their two properties. And I think what I was trying to say there was, and what we did end up doing was saying they could go ahead and plan on not putting the fence in between their two properties while we waited on to get feedback for the variance about the setback.
Okay. And just reading it, didn't work out right for me. So
to hold a vote on whether or not they are okay with not putting a fence between the two properties.
You're talking about your property though.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
There's no other questions or on the May 13, 2021, excuse me, minutes. Is there a motion to accept them?
I move to accept them.
All right. Is there a second?
A second.
Looney seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, 4-0. Those will be accepted. And I'll be honest, I had a hard time remembering back to August of last year. Barb usually does these from the recordings, so I'm going to go with, if it's in there, it was probably, yeah.
I thought she had me down right.
So is there a motion to accept the August? What was that?
13.
13th of 2020?
I'll move to approve them.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, just off my memory.
Yeah. We're gonna have a problem here, though.
We don't have the right people.
We don't have the right people because Mr. Woods was part of that. Mr. Looney has to abstain. We need Mr. Hankison.
So we still can't.
We
approve
still
them.
can't approve them.
Just table that. a little
That's
longer.
why
Well,
they're still hanging around.
that's why they're still
unapproved
hanging
and
around.
longer.
Oh, I can,
Okay.
All right. So now we can move on to our agenda. Our first item is, well, our next item would be visitors. Are there any visitors that do not have a variance pending or are not here to talk about one of the variances that have anything for BZA? All right, hearing none. And does anybody on the committee have any old business? All right, hearing none. All right, we will go to new business, which is our two variances. The first one is for 212 West Cliff Street. This is a fence variance by Byron and Lisa Smith. Everyone should have a full packet there. And I am going to try to share for the people that are on Zoom that may have video up the documents as well here in a second. Terry, do you want us to, and you gave us the executive summary page,
Yeah.
but you want to give us the quick rundown on this?
Yes, I was approached by the Smiths for a fence permit. And so a part of granting a fence permit is of visiting the site. And we noticed that they were not within their property lines as it appeared on the county auditor's website. So after Mr. Smith did some investigation and we looked at it further, it appears that since he's moved in there, there was a fence that was up in the area that he is replacing with this fence. And it was always in what we call a right of way. So as Wagner Street ends at Cliff, you will see straight ahead from it is what we call like a right of way, like that's the rest of the street that would go into the creek. So it is not owned, it is owned by the village. It's village right of way. So Mr. Smith asked if how he could still use that land to put up his fence. I contacted Jeff, our village solicitor, and he said, since really the usage of the land, there's not much we can do with it, that a variance from the BZA would be the way to go for Mr. and Mrs. Smith to put up their fence. So thus I communicated that with Mr. Smith, and he submitted the correct application. And it's my opinion that the BZA should consider his variance. And Mr. Smith is on tonight, so he can talk if I said anything.
All right. Does anybody, before I send it over to Mr. Smith, have any questions for Terry?
So what we're referring to is the east end of the property, then, correct?
That is correct.
So how much encroachment is there onto village property?
I believe it ended up to be about 10. You have a drawing in your packet.
Right?
Okay, and if you look at the drawing in your packet, he is going out, I believe, 50 feet I believe probably, I would say half of that, because we don't know where the pins are. I would say approximately half of that would be in the village right of way, so to speak, or on the land that's there. Now, they have been mowing and taking care of that land, the Smiths have. So,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
All right.
So it's the right of way for what road? Walnut?
Yes.
Walnut, did I say Wagner? I meant Walnut.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
said Wagner and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. Wrong location.
Yeah.
So
wrong end of
anyhow,
town.
yeah, it's Walnut. It would have been like, if you go throughout the maps throughout the village, you will see that when a street ends like that, usually further ahead is just a patch of grass, which is, it really belongs to the village. It's a right of way. It's closed. It's not open. In this case, this piece of land could not be used for any real function.
It would be hard to put a road there.
It would be hard to put a road there unless you want to put a bridge. And then, yeah. So I think the land that we're discussing right now is really non-functional. We would not be able to do anything with it, except maybe a park. And I think we have enough parks right now. So,
Yeah. All right. Mr. Smith, if you're on, you can hop on and tell us a little bit about the fence or add to what Terry has already told us.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to lead this. When we bought the house in 2019, like the pictures show, there was a fence there. So I kind of assumed that was my front yard. It wasn't until Terry and I started to investigate this that I found out there was that encroachment. And it's 2/3 of the front yard is basically an easement. But we have been maintaining it, since we bought the property. It does border right to the creek. So the fence basically is just to keep the dogs in the front yard. So I would appreciate, any consideration you guys can give us.
All right. Is there anyone else on that wants to speak in favor of the variance? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the variance? All right, hearing none, I will turn it over to BZA for questions for the applicant, for Terry, and discussion on the variance application.
One question I have is I guess just a potential problem in the future with upkeep and maintenance of the fence if it's on village property and not the owner's property. If the fence isn't being maintained, is there enforcement of the upkeep of that fence? Or does it become the village's problem in that point?
Yeah.
So that is one of the things the committee can do, is can put conditions on variances. So one of the conditions, if you grant this, would be current owner and any potential subsequent owner has to maintain the fence or remove it just as if it was on their property. Just to make clear that the village would not assume responsibility for maintaining it, if you so chose.
is that Mr. Looney?
Yes.
Thank you.
Terry, because this is coming through my computer microphone, can you hear them okay?
I can. I really
Okay.
can. I just didn't recognize Mr. Looney's voice.
Okay.
I like the idea of the condition as far as putting on the variance that as far as the upkeep on the fence to where it doesn't fall back on the village. I think that's a good call. Other than that, I am familiar with the property. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, I can't see any time in the future that the village will be able to use that property. I see no reason why we shouldn't grant the variance.
Well, if we're not going to use it, can't we cede the ownership to Mr. Smith?
The village could choose to vacate the right of way. In general, though, even prior to me becoming mayor, the village has not always wanted to do that, just on the hopes and dreams that one day maybe they need it. Because there are a number of others around the village that could be vacated, but are not. The other thing that the right of way maintains is that when we usually think of it as a road, if we needed to run a water line or a sewer line down the hill and across the creek or something like that, we would have that right of way. So it's not always just the above ground stuff. But that is something that could be done, but that is a council action.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Who has the authority?
That is a council action.
So, Mr. Smith, if we grant the variance, Mr. Smith could ask council to do that.
He could always ask council to vacate that right
And
away.
you're saying historically they will say no.
That has been my experience.
Okay. All right, thank you for clarifying that. Because I was ready to just give it away. So,
And the refusal to vacate an area recently led to us paving about an extra 150 feet that we weren't planning on.
okay.
Would there be anything that needs to be like included to clarify that like the land is not being ceded, I guess? Like, does putting the fence there like imply that it is part of the parcel?
Not because it's a variance, I would say no. It's getting permission to use the village right away to put up the fence to enclose the yard. I don't think it creates anything. And Jeff didn't say anything to you about that, Terry, did he, when he said it?
No. No, he said the cleanest way and the best way was through a variance through the BZA.
But you're right, there was an implication that it was there with the fence that was there before.
Yeah,
Correct.
which apparently probably did not have a permit.
It did not.
No, it did not.
Any other discussion? If not, is there a motion to either, I guess you get three options on a motion: to approve as is, to approve with conditions, or to deny.
I guess I'll move to approve with the condition that the owner of the 627 East Market Street.
No.
Nope, this is 212.
212 West Cliff, yeah. The owner of 212 West Cliff is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the.
All right,
I would second that.
all right. Williamson seconds. Any further discussion? I assume, Mr. and Ms. Smith, that that's not a problem, that condition that they have, since you're here following all the proper procedures to get the fence, that the upkeep of it is not going to be an issue.
No, not at all. It was actually my impression, Mr. Mayor, that it was part of the state zoning, that even though it's an easement, the property owner adjacent is still required, I believe, to maintain it. At least, mow it and such.
All right.
So no, that's not a problem.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Looney,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Mauger.
Yes.
All right. Hankinson absent, 4-0. The variance with the condition that the owner of 212 West Cliff maintains responsibility of the fence will be approved. Just procedural stuff for you. Terry will work on the paperwork probably tomorrow when she's in the office, and get you the final stamps of approval and everything. But other than getting that, you're good to get started.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. You're welcome to hang out on the meeting longer if you want, or if you want to drop off, that is fine as well. But we appreciate you joining.
Awesome. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. All right.
This is Cindy Gray. We're going to log off as well.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
All right, which gets us to our next agenda item, which is the variance for an accessory building at 627 East Market Street by Mr. King, who is present in council chambers today. So we'll go ahead and have you come on up. I'm gonna turn on this microphone. While he's coming on up, Terry, if you want to go ahead and give us the executive summary on this one, please.
Yes, Mr. King had applied to erect an accessory building that was located on a separate parcel or a different parcel from his primary structure. So I informed him that because it was that all accessory structures have to be on the same parcel as your primary structure, he would have to ask for a variance. So I also explained to him this is much like the variance that we granted on North Main Street, if you remember, for the accessory structure there. And by the way, just as an update, that gentleman has engaged a surveyor and that should be done soon. So Mr. King said that his intent was to go ahead and put all of his parcels into one, but he would go ahead and come and ask for the variance. So that is why he's here tonight, is that he wants to put an accessory structure on a parcel that does not contain his principal structure. And based on what he has told me, it's my opinion that BZA should approve this because he does want to put it into one parcel with conditions like we had on the other one. That's all I have.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Terry real quick on that one? All right. Mr. King?
Yeah. So the accessory structure is just it's a carport. It won't have any foundation. It's metal frame. It'll go behind the back corner of my current barn. So it's almost going to be it'll be very near the middle of the property. And it's just over 5.5 acres. Blocked by barn on one side, blocked by woods on the other. Rogers 11 acres is in the way back. And the only people in the front are the people traveling down the road that might look over. So it's not going to be a view for anyone really. You have any questions?
Which one is, I'm trying to, I should have drove by. I drove by there all day long because I'm literally 2 blocks away. But which one is 627? What color is your house?
That's dark brown. It's right on the road.
Okay.
It's right there close to where the police sit in the grass.
Yeah. Yep. That's the one I thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure I was at the right one. Okay. And your intent is to combine it's 2 parcels right now?
It's 4.
It's 4. And just to combine them all into one?
Now, have you started the process of combining the properties?
I've not, and this is all new to me. And I called down to the map room and I had them combined, and I didn't understand there's a difference for tax purposes and legal. So I've got them combined for tax purposes.
So you get one tax bill?
Yes, but I didn't know there's a difference in that. So I got to start at the end of the process.
Okay.
Okay.
And this really has no bearing on it, but I'm just curious. What are your intentions with the property? I mean, it's a good bit of property.
Should be just for use of the whole property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't have much. I like to walk back there and experience the nature.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's what I spend hours a day doing, especially in the summertime. I have 3 dogs that
Science teacher.
are back there all the time. I've recently been identifying all the trees and the wildflowers and even the weeds.
Yeah.
So it's just something that's kind of fun to do.
Oh, that's great. I just wasn't sure if you had plans down the road for anything to develop or anything like that.
I've had thoughts of maybe putting a pond in and in the future sometime.
Okay,
That's not anywhere near.
Anybody else have any questions? This is very similar to the one we did. Actually, how big is the carport?
It's 18 by 20. Sorry about that.
it's
It's
20 by
18.
18.
18.6 is what it says here on the drawing, so.
Yeah.
I asked the question and then flipped to the drawing, you know.
Yeah. It's on the drawing.
So it's a 2-car carport.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm not gonna use it for cars. I'm gonna use it just to put stuff in.
Is it enclosed then?
It's got a roof. The front and back is not enclosed. And then the sides will come down.
So it's one of the drive-through ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't tell my husband about that. He would envy it.
Okay, so now I have a question. He just said that. But so Mr. King is not a temporary canvas top, right?
No, it's a metal top.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I don't know if you know this, but like, is there any reason that the parcels will not get combined? Like, if you went to do it and they said you can't do it because of X, Y, Z?
I don't know anything about that process, but I don't see why they wouldn't do it. Just where that piece of property is at, and there's no really other use other than to put homes, and the one parcel that's even the furthest east, that's just a sliver of land. It couldn't be used for anything.
Because of the pipeline.
Well, yeah, right next to the pipeline, but I mean, it's, you can see, maybe I draw the parcels on the map. It's real small, it's a sliver.
It's a sliver.
Then there's the parcel that the house is on, and then it would all have to be reparceled for any kind of use.
So here, let me throw this up on the big screen. Sorry, Terry, your picture's going to go away for a second here.
Oh.
At least for us in the room.
That's fine with me.
So when we're looking at these parcels here,
He's got them on his drawing.
it's this one, this is all one,
Yes,
this one,
that one.
and then this is all one as well?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a drawing in the packet.
His
yeah,
drawing shows the 4 parcels.
Yeah, the parcel to the west is actually split in 2 parcels. I don't think it shows
Yeah.
there.
yeah, right there and there.
But
No, that's-
north
the
and
west,
south on
that's
the west,
east.
Oh.
the west parcel,
Yeah.
Oh,
No, back onto
right there.
that one, and then.
Right,
go to
that
the
one.
black Yeah.
yeah, because you said 4, so that makes sense. 1,
Yeah.
2, this one becomes 3, and that one becomes
Right.
4. Okay,
Same one, yeah.
It seems to me, as long as he is, we're gonna have assurance that you are going to combine the properties.
Mhm.
Seems to me we can
But-
approve that variance with that condition.
and that's exactly what we did on the last one.
On Main Street, which I saw their building is quite interesting.
Right. I believe on the last variance, the way it was worded was that combining the properties would be initiated within 3 months. Is that correct?
That sounds familiar.
So,
And Terry's nodding her head yes as well.
so if we can do that same condition, everybody else will be agreement with that. I would, my opinion would be that would be the direction to go.
And since you're new to the lot combination stuff, to start it within 3 months means you'll start your application process with Terry. It'll probably take longer than 3 months, but get it started with Terry and the paperwork so we can get it down to map room and auditor and all of that stuff. Just get the paperwork started.
And may I ask, and what is the actual purpose of combining legally? Just because I don't know.
So that you're in compliance with our ordinance that says you can't have an auxiliary structure
Okay,
without a primary structure on a parcel.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
So that's what.
I have a
doing.
comment here.
Mhm.
When I owned the property that I sold to Kevin, to combine all properties together was gonna cost $2,300 for surveying and to do all that they needed to do to get it through there. That's the reason I didn't have it done.
No, okay.
So
Wasn't-
I don't know whether we should attach that or not. Can we just give him a variance without the attachment of?
No, because it won't comply unless it's all one parcel. So that,
Maybe you can shop around, Kevin, and, you know, do a little better than that.
Yeah, I personally don't know what all is involved, so I can't.
A new description,
Yeah.
totally, and of course, they have to come out and find the pins.
Right. I would think the surveying probably is the expensive part of the whole deal, but I don't know. I know we had talked about
Now,
buying
the only
the
other
two
thing
properties
is,
I have. But
Yeah.
Maybe you can get someone else to, now, the people that I was talking to was McFarland.
can Terry speak to the expense?
I cannot. I don't know how much that will cost.
Most of the cost is, because I do these in my day job from time to time, most of the cost is in your survey and who you get. As long as they are a professional surveyor, they have that PS stamp that they can put on the description that goes to the auditor. It's fine. Whether they charge you $500 or $5,000, the auditor doesn't care as long as it's professionally surveyed.
Okay.
And that's where your expense comes from. The previously mentioned one's one of the more expensive ones around here. They're very good, but they're also
Very expensive.
a little more on the pricey side.
Do I just Google search?
Yeah,
Okay.
because there's freelance. I mean, there's people out there that have their professional surveyor license that don't work for big companies that just go out and do it. So
Okay.
How permanent is this carport? Is it
It's
like
not.
concrete in it?
No, it's not permanent at all. In fact, I am capable of putting it up and taking it down by myself.
What if the condition was like, if you were trying to sell off one of those parcels or for any reason not be the owner of the two adjacent parcels, then you have to deal with that carport, so like you gotta take it down or something. That way you don't.
You have to combine the parcels.
Yeah. You don't have to have that expense. Or I guess I don't know what all the purpose of that zoning code is. Like, I guess I'm thinking that one thing is like, you don't want to have parcels just sitting out there with just the old abandoned shed just by itself in the middle of the town or whatever. I don't know if there's anything else.
that's kind of what it's for. So you can't put
Correct.
a garage or a shed on just an open parcel. It's got to have a primary living structure.
Thus the name accessory.
Yep. Which is why it goes back to, if it's two lots, we ask that they get combined.
I mean, if you're gonna combine the lots either way, it doesn't matter. But if you're only gonna combine the lots just to have an accessory structure on it.
That is what that start that accessory structure.
I guess if you didn't want to endure all of this accessory building on the parcel with the house and the barn that are already there. Like moving the furniture around.
The parcel, is the parcel that the barn's on also with the house?
Yeah,
Or
Yes.
just-
the house and the
Yeah.
barn are together, and if you moved it just to the west of the barn and
Well,
south of the house,
except that might exceed, depending on its designation, impervious surface coverage.
we haven't passed that yet. So he doesn't have to worry about that jurisdiction yet.
Yet.
And if he's already got it put up, but it sounds like something you can put up and take down.
Yeah.
I think I want to find out about this
I
kind
mean,
of
I did
structure.
once just build a frame to see where it would fit, and I took it back down. So I mean, I did it by myself.
So is there a building permit involved in a carport?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Even
considered an
though
accessory
he
structure.
doesn't have a foundation to where he can actually move it, take it down and move it 30 feet next week.
I could even brace it and drag it with my track.
Right.
It's still considered an accessory structure. A
Well,
carport is.
I guess my question is, though, if he does combine the lots, he gets a building permit to put up this carport. And, a month later says, yeah, I'd like it better 30 feet that way. Does that require him to get another building permit because of a different location. I'm just not familiar with that. That's a gray area, I think.
Okay.
So if, I guess the question is, Terry puts this one up and then, I don't know, maybe next year decides to put a 20 by 18 garage up. Or were you saying just the exact
You're
same
saying
structure?
take this one down and move it.
And just
I'm
move it.
just saying, you know, hook it to your lawn tractor and move it 30 feet. Would he have to get a separate building permit just to move it, or is that something he can do without it being an issue? Because the permit actually states where a building is located.
Mm-hmm. I think it would come back to this committee. I would say he wouldn't need one, but that's something I would have to research because I have never came across anybody moving
Moving a building.
after
Yeah.
they put it somewhere. That's a new one.
I don't have intentions of moving it, but.
Right, but yeah, and the reason I ask is I just don't want this to be an issue where you say, boy, I'd like it better if it was shaded more and I want to move it 30 or 40 feet.
Yeah.
I don't want that to become a complication for you down the road.
Okay.
That was my concern. Now, but as a foundation, you're pretty well set. This is where it's going to go. But this is something I haven't run across before.
Right, so it sounds like we have a lot of if type of situations.
That if
So,
situations, except
Yeah, if we grant the variance with contingency, that it be contingent that you unite your parcels, and then you find out that is a bigger investment than you'd like to incur, that maybe you change your mind and would like to put it on the parcel with the house, so you don't have to do all of that.
Will I come back to the board?
You don't have to come back to us if you say, okay, it's too expensive, I'm withdrawing that appeal. I'm just gonna put it, then you would just have his building permit, Terry, to you.
Yeah, right. So to what you're saying, Kay, that is correct. If he would say, I want to put it back on the original where the principal
House is.
structure is, then he would just have to stay within the setbacks. And he would just come and say, this is what I want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'd want to know that I had that option
Yeah.
before I incurred a major expense. It's not a one or none kind of
Yeah, that's
situation.
good.
So.
Yep.
But if you are set on having it there, then if we approve a variance, it's going to be contingent on it. Does he have to unite all 4 parcels, or does he just have to unite that parcel with the parcel with the principal structure, Terry?
That is correct. He only has to unite the parcel that he's putting the structure on.
So
If
that
he
would
wants
be
to
2.
have the other one stay, that's up to him, but they'll be landlocked, I think.
and
Well,
economy of scale, not a really
Yeah.
economy of scale, just cost benefit. If you're combining them, might as well do all 4.
yeah.
Doesn't
Well, you
really
have the
cost more.
surveyor there.
Well, because you're going to pay for a survey.
Okay.
So, survey all 4, you survey this little too, and then, 2 years later, you decide you want to add the other one. Well, now you're paying for another survey.
Mhm. And it might be a good idea. Well, I have zero intention on doing anything else. If in the future I did, then it would already be combined and I could.
Kevin, that quote was given to me in probably 2018. Now, when I sold it to you, I had it all surveyed. So there might be something there if you check with them. We have to price on it.
You're allowed to use one that's on record. Terry?
Sorry,
Roger is proposing that he can use the survey from when he purchased the property from him to,
that would be up to the map room, whether they want to accept that or not. I would think, I don't know, to tell you the truth. Again, I haven't ran across this, but I would say the map room may say, yeah, we can use that survey, or they may say, no, we need an updated one. How old was it?
I think it's either 2017, 2018.
So it's about 4 years old. They may not accept it. I'm not sure.
Sounds like a lot of research needs to be done.
Call to the map room.
Yes.
Yes. All
There
right,
you
back
go.
to the variance.
Since you're an attorney, can you use an old survey and put all the descriptions together?
So they will, I have had 50-50 luck with that.
Yeah.
It depends on the map room engineer that's reviewing it. I
Mhm.
have, added 2 tracks before to say, let's make these one and copy and paste them. And they've said, okay, that works. And then I've had them say, well, because of the way the tracks are next to each other, we want a better survey that instead of 6 pages long ends up being 2 pages because it's just a big square. And so they've rejected it.
Well, I know these parcels have got either 3 or 4 numbers.
Mhm.
And it would end up with one number. So
We've
Right.
already done that.
Well, when I'm talking numbers, yeah, they've already got one number for tax purposes. What I'm talking about is the number of meets and bounds and descriptions that they go across, how many feet, how many chain lengths, what degree, turn. They're relatively rectangular lots, so that makes it a little easier. So, but like I said, I've had some where I've successfully had those and some where I've
where would
not
the
in-
first step be? Where would you go to the map room, or would you go to?
probably,
Instead of a little surveyor.
well, I'd ask the map room.
Yeah.
You've got, a 4-year-old survey from 4 parcels that you want to combine into one. Will they accept?
Yeah.
You'll need a new legal description because
Yeah,
those
legal
have to be done, but do they want a new survey or can a new legal description using the 4 parcels be done? So,
Well, have we muddied the waters too much for you? Or are you still
Really, I
interested
guess
in
I'm
proceeding
glad.
with the variance?
Mr. King, do you still want us to address the issue that you presented?
Yes.
Okay, I
Okay.
guess I would needed to know that.
all right then. So same options as the last variance, and there's an option to approve with conditions, or deny.
Well, I would propose that we approve his variance with the condition that he start combining the lots within the 3-month window. And that's the only condition that I would see that we need to put on it.
Do we need to state explicitly that if that is denied, that the variance would then not be approved? Or is that understood? I don't like to assume things.
No, and it's a good question, because you could always say that, it started, but ultimately if it's denied, he is permitted to continue to have that carport there.
And I don't think that's what we're agreeing to.
Right.
Right.
So do we need to explicitly say if the parcel, the combining of the parcel process is not approved, then the variance is denied?
You can, but I think the practical
Or do we let things go and then revisit?
I think you could let it go and revisit, because the practical effect of that is, I know he said that this one can go up and down and he's able to do it himself, but if it were, I'm just thinking other situations that may arise. If you say that, then you're waiting until the lot combination occurs before they can put up the building with the variance.
Well, he can take his down.
But he can take his down. That is unique to this one. That is correct.
I mean, I never put the metal siding on it. Once that goes up, it'll take a little bit longer.
But yeah. So it is the committee's choice how you want to word it like that. I think and I have a hard time seeing why it would be denied, but if it were, it's the committee's choice how you want to address it, either permit that variance to continue to run for him, or to then say, no, the structure has to come down.
Okay.
It is your choice. Or leave it up in the air, and then Terry will come back to us if that happens and say, what do I do now?
Terry, is Terry allowed to comment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Terry's being very quiet.
Oh, I'm quiet. I usually don't say that. I'm okay with either way. I really am. I'm with the mayor. I do not see any rational reasoning why they can't combine these parcels. I'm not so sure they can use the older survey, but I think it's pretty much a done deal. And it's how the committee wants to express their feelings as to if it can't be combined, then the variance is denied or pulled. Or I can just come back and say, Mr. King says that they can't be combined. What do we want to do? So I think either way is fine with me.
I think it makes sense to have that language in there in the condition. If it doesn't go through, then it needs to be revisited.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we can
I'd
do
like
that.
to be explicit like that too.
yeah.
Okay.
So then that makes it a motion to approve with the condition to start the lot combination within 3 months. And then if the lot combination
It's not successful.
is denied, then yes, more positive, not successful.
You know, I understand
Then-
that, but
then
at the same time, if we do it that way, then we're basically saying you're not gonna get a building permit until it's combined anyhow.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
why go through the variance process and why not just wait till you combine the properties?
I feel like he's just rolling the dice then.
Right,
It's kind of, you'd be like rolling that, like if it didn't go through, then you gotta deal with it, like.
right.
I could just drag it 30 feet to the.
There you go. See, I would put it there right now and be done with it and say forget it.
See, and of course, one of the purposes for variances though is to make exceptions to our code. So our code says, yes, we got to have an accessory structure with a primary structure. And yes, we want those types of situations combined. But the variance process does allow the committee to say, even if that lot combination is denied and your building is already standing there because we gave you that variance, we will allow it to continue to stand there. Can't build another one, can't replace it, don't move it are all options. But the variance process does allow the committee to be able to say, even though that wasn't successful, you could still keep it there as well. And I have seen those though, that those usually run with just that variance structure. So that building comes down and you want to put another one up, it needs another variance type situation.
Okay.
Or you want to move it 30 feet.
Or you want to move
You
it
don't
30
need
feet.
You don't need a variance, you just need a building permit.
All right. So yeah. All right. So does that change the way you guys want to word your motion?
Would you read what we have said
Approve.
so far?
Approve the variance with the condition that a lot combination starts within 3 months. And if the lot combination is not successful, then this committee is to revisit the variance.
Okay.
I have a question. If he combines all the lots, why does he need a variance? And why did he pay for a variance?
Is a good question.
Yeah.
You pay
Mr.
for
King
the,
knew he had that option, but Mr. King wanted to apply for the variance.
you pay for the variance to be able to put the building up now, knowing that the lot combination can take several months to be able to complete.
So if he waits, will he get his money back from the variance?
What do you mean?
Okay, he paid $375 for the variance.
Mhm.
If he waits to combine the properties, he doesn't need the variance anymore.
Mhm.
Does he get his money back?
Well, he's here
Yeah.
because he doesn't want to wait.
Yeah.
He doesn't
I
want to
correct?
wait, and all the work's been done because Mr. King knew that going into the process.
Mhm.
Isn't
Yeah.
that correct, Mr. King?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
So basically the reason you're applied to the variance was so you could proceed with this instead of waiting until the lot combination happened.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot as I've gone. Like, I didn't know there was going to be a lot combination requirement. So
Okay.
I've learned things.
And I think that's the reason the other people wanted the variance right away too, with the intent, because they were looking to get the building up quick, and the lot combination takes months.
Right.
I would like to get it up before it gets cold out and starts snowing. And
Yeah.
That's why I asked him if he still wanted to.
Yep.
do it.
So do we want to change the wording on the motion?
I like it the way. he
I'm
read it.
okay with the way it is.
Who made it?
Mauger. All right, so the motion that has been out there is to approve with the condition to start the lot combination within 3 months. And if lot combination is not successful, the BZA will revisit the variance. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Mr. Looney seconds. Now I'm going to add, just for the record, that even though I don't see any reason it would be denied, but if it is, but there is an understanding, everybody knows that he's going to be putting up this building,
Yes.
Tomorrow. Well, school started this weekend. So, all right. Is there any other discussion? All right, hearing none, I will call roll. Mr. Mauger,
Yes.
Mr. Looney,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
and Mr. Woods.
Yes.
All right, 4-0, the variance with that condition will be approved. You heard me tell the last folks, Terry will be in to do the paperwork tomorrow, but I mean, that's just literally dotting the I's, crossing the T's to get you everything. And there's school tomorrow, so I know you're not going to start then, but
Yeah, Missy will call
but
him.
you're good to go.
This could
Yeah,
be
and Missy will give him a
perfect
call, probably first of the week.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
Does anybody else have any new business? If
Well, that's
not,
planning and zoning, that's-
we got planning and zoning next, but
Wrap this one here.
we'll wrap this one up. Our next BZA meeting is to be determined based on need. We don't have any in yet for September, Terry.
No, nothing correct for BZA.
All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn BZA?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
All opposed, same sign. 4-0, we will adjourn BZA at 7:53 p.m.
Perfect.
And I'm
Thank
just
you,
going,
everyone.
yep, I'm going to keep the recording going and the live stream going so we can go right into planning and zoning.
Mayor, I'd like to stay for the meeting. Do you want me to sit back there or can I stay here?
If you're comfortable, I don't care.
Okay.
Technically, some people will say you're supposed to be back there, but you're there. I'm not going to make you move.
So long as you pay A where you're at.
Yes.
You have to, you have two
Sometimes that's-
teachers here.
Is there a live link posted? I had someone text me. I found it and I texted them the link. Is there?
There was on the
I went-
website, but it might have got buried when we moved the stuff over
Okay.
because the new site went live. So it was up there. I don't know where it would be.
I'll go there.
It's on the planning and zoning page though on the website. It should be there.
So planning zoning department.
Mhm. Be under the meetings, I think, because when we were doing them live, I posted the links to the council meetings. All right. While Brandy's working on that, we'll go ahead at 7:55 and call the planning and zoning meeting together, or planning and zoning commission to order. And roll call. I am here. McCreary,
Present.
Looney,
Here.
Mauger,
Present.
Williamson.
Here.
All right, everyone is here for P and Z. And also here is Terry is on the video screen. Mr. Woods is here in the office, having just concluded the BZA meeting. And we got a couple, I see Mr. Foreman online. So first agenda item is approval of the minutes from the public hearing, July 8th, 2021.
Mayor, I read over the minutes and I'd like to move to approve the minutes.
All right, McCreary moves to approved minutes. Is there
I'll second that.
Mauger seconds? Any further discussion? All right, McCreary,
Yes.
Mauger,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Looney,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. All right, minutes will be approved as written. Next agenda item, visitors. Roger, got anything?
Not a thing, just a listener.
Rick, got anything for us on visitors?
I'm good.
All right. So then we will move on. First item, old business number one is short-term rentals. So we had the public meeting. At this point, I'll just open it up to the committee for discussion and thoughts on public hearing and where you want to go.
There was definitely a lot of sentiment against the short-term rental stuff, it seemed like. There wasn't much for, I would like to hear, I guess, more about like the pros to it, the purpose of going through the forms like this.
Because you joined after as this was coming on. So, you know, one of the things when we looked at it and Terry brought it up and we got it, there's only a couple in the village. But other communities were doing things and some of them are having positive results, some of them not so positive. So we undertook that process to try to figure out first, did we want to do anything? And then what we wanted to do to try to try to prevent issues from arising. I don't think necessarily we were really having any issues with them, save the one short-term rental that is not an online listed short-term rental, but is more of a, I guess, the old school boarding room house, word of mouth, show up with $50 and stay the night type thing. There were some issues with that occasionally pop up that Terry gets notified of. But if all of a sudden a whole bunch of short-term rentals popped up, we didn't want to be behind the 8 ball.
And to your point, and to let you know that I have received a phone call from a lady that said she's been listening to everything and she wanted to sign up because she's going to start renting out part of her duplex online at Airbnb. So there is interest growing. And we're not the only village looking at it. And I realize that Gambier is my husband, but the county in Knox County has hired a company to come in and look at their zoning rules and regulations. And one of the new sections that they just added was bed and breakfasts. So, you know, this is just a growing trend that everybody is looking at.
So, and then some of the things that we looked at, of course, you heard me say, you know, how we did it, talk to owners and then neighbors and stuff like that. One of the things that, you know, we got to be cognizant of as well as we may have different reasons or requirements that we want than say Columbus. Columbus has a lot of hotels and they have a hotel lobby. And when someone's staying in it there, they might not be paying a bed tax and it's taking from another business. We don't have that problem. But there are other issues that could arise if we started having a lot of them. And that's what we're trying to find the right, at least from my perspective, trying to find the right mesh of so that we don't get behind the 8 ball on problems, but still allow them to operate.
And we were looking for uniformity.
And uniformity.
So we're at the position we need to decide whether we're ready to send it to council or whether we want to make changes. Am I correct?
Correct. And again, we've been very, I mean, COVID popped up in the middle of all of this, but we've been very deliberate. So we can have discussion tonight. You don't have to make a decision tonight. We can have discussion. We can talk about particular topics or non-topics, and we can ask Terry to do more research on stuff or anything. Or we can discuss and make a decision. But unlike the BZA where we have a time frame, we're not time constrained on doing this.
I know one of my concerns was, we talked about being not necessarily licensed, but either a business license or something that was registered with the Department of Taxation or the Secretary of State. I know in the last draft we had from the last meeting said incorporated with state.
Mhm.
And I think we need to come up with a solid terminology there, because I don't think incorporated would apply to everybody. But I think there needs to be I don't know if it's a business license, but I guess I've always had a vendor's license, but I'm not sure if that applies here.
Right. And I don't think it would. And they're not a hotel motel, so those licenses don't apply. So I think short of saying register with the Ohio Secretary of State, because someone renting an owner occupied Airbnb, they might not have a business set up for it. It may just very well go on their personal income tax type stuff as a Schedule C. So not having one of those licenses, I think we're either stuck with they either register with the Ohio Secretary of State, which means they file articles of incorporation there, or we say, which is already in there anyway, that's part of the purpose of this, is they're registering with the Village of Baltimore, and so that we know, and maybe we have them make notification to Rita as well that they'll be doing it. But there's not I am not aware of any license in between the two of those, like a hotel where you would get some sort of occupancy license to run a hotel for an Airbnb at the state level.
Okay.
So it's either going to be us or the state and us.
Right. All these, mind you, most of the copies we had from other municipalities are mostly larger municipalities. We've got Dublin, Burlington, Columbus. All the ones I've seen all require some sort of business license.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know enough about what that business license might be. It seems to me there should be something.
Some of those municipalities are large enough that they are set up. They have their own business sections and may also have their own business registries.
Okay, so they could actually register through the municipality itself.
Through the municipality. We don't have that, except to say if this were to pass, they have to register with the village. So it would be it could be the start of one or something like that. But those larger municipalities, because they run their own tax departments and all of that stuff, may have their own business license requirements. When you open a business there, you get, I guess in some aspects we do with the business occupancy license.
Mhm.
We kind of have that.
We do.
But yeah, they have more resources and have their own little departments to do that.
Okay.
So that might be what it's referring to there.
I know we had talked about the difference between a license and a permit through the town of Baltimore itself. And I'm hesitant to do a license through Baltimore because then that implies too many things, I'm afraid. And that's why I kind of thought we were, I don't know if you want to say kicking it down the road, but kicking it over to the state to where that took it off the
That's the note
bus.
that I have also,
But,
that we
you know,
discussed.
so that was kind of the way I was hoping we could do it as far as but again, I don't know about what business licenses there are.
Yeah, I don't know license. And again, to your point, a permit is you filled out the paperwork, you met all the qualifications, you
Right.
dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's,
Right.
and comply with the codes.
I know I'm relatively new to the committee, pretty new to the committee, but I also feel like we're still collecting information. I know I at least keep going online, trying to find other towns, municipalities to see
They're waiting
what
for us to
ordinances.
put ours on.
I know, but that's why I think that, we really need to step carefully and not make decisions too quickly. We're still doing research at this point.
And there are other municipalities that have looked at it and decided to do nothing. And there are some that
So, no, you're not allowed.
considering moratoriums on them.
At Burlington, it just flat out said no, they're not allowed.
Right.
I'm
And there-
personally not in favor of that, but
And just like in Gambier's, what I read in their draft is that they're going to allow bed and breakfast, but the owner has to be a part of the owner's residence, or the owner has to live adjunction to the property. So, it's a different way of regulating bed and breakfast, I guess I should say. So everybody, like the mayor says, has different ways of looking at it.
But that is a bed and breakfast. We don't want to put Rick in a spot, Mr. Foreman, to where he can't run
He
his
has to fix
facility.
breakfast.
Right.
Since that is not a bed and breakfast.
Correct.
that's where the word may comes in there.
Right. So,
Why don't you
I
just
think
put
that was
on a
one of the
box
things
cereal
that
or
started this whole process
box.
was that not being a bed and breakfast, that being a short-term rental.
Right.
We don't want to cause undue problems with something along that line. For the most part, I like most of the things we already had drafted in. Say that the business license, the only thing that still is a sticking point for me. Background checks, I mean, I totally agree with. I think we had in there fire inspection.
Our plan.
Fire plan, excuse me. I got too many papers in front of me. I can't find all my notes here.
So here, so while you're going through it, because so for your fire plan on an owner occupied, they submit it with part of their application on what we defined as a commercial short-term rental, that it became part of the building, must have a commercial building inspection, and they may submit their plan with their commercial building inspection report. But what was everyone on the background? Because there was, if I recall correctly, some of the ones that were
Some people
objected to that portion were like, okay, we get it. We understand there needs to be some sort of regulation here, but that one takes it a step too far. And I can honestly see both sides.
Well, I will tell you what I found out through the research I've done. And I know this isn't an end all, but it comes down to what I understand is the fact that this is somewhere where someone comes in, might only be there 1 or 2 nights, but they are undressing on that premises. Where like a restaurant, you don't have that. But just because someone passes a background check doesn't mean they're going to not do something stupid, put up cameras where they shouldn't.
I mean, you still have restrooms
Right.
in the restaurants.
I know someone who just got a job at a fitness facility, And because of that reason, they had to pass a background check. And that was the specific reason for that. So that's the way I understand
At like just like a gym?
it. Like a commercial gym facility, yes. But because of that, they had to pass a background check.
I guess if I were going to come and spend time residing for a short term even in somebody's facility, I'd like to know that they had a clear background. And that would make me feel safe. And I feel that that's what I'd like to offer to someone who came to our community, that
And
they be
here,
able to feel safe.
so I am by no means an Airbnb expert user. I've done it a couple of times. And I'll be honest, I did not even check to see if the person I was renting from had a background check. When I went on to Airbnb, I found a place that I liked. I checked the owner's reviews to see what other people said about them. And this person had hundreds, if not thousands of reviews. I did not once, and I read about them, but I did not check to see, and I don't think the Airbnb page even tells me if they ran a background check on them, but it's not something that I actively sought out because I was relying on, there's been 1,000 people that rented this place before me. So I guess I see the side of not doing it as well, because it is kind of crowdsource type thing and stuff like that. Because I guess my next question would be, if we require someone to have a background check and it's not part of the Airbnb, how do I know as an Airbnb user that you had a background check done on that person?
I had someone tell me that to be an Airbnb, part of their structure, you had to have a background check.
And that may be, and so if
That's why
Airbnb,
I might choose an Airbnb, because I know they have that criteria.
so if Airbnb has a background check, then why do we?
It says here the
Company
company
doesn't
doesn't
do
do
it globally.
background checks globally.
But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't,
Globally, outside US.
I didn't check for a background check on the person I was talking to. Just because of the way Airbnb was set up. Because I found a place I liked and people gave it 2 stars. I didn't check it. This person had 5 stars.
So according to this, it says when it comes to screening Airbnb, according to the website, it only performs background checks on United States-based guests and hosts.
Okay, so if Airbnb is doing its own version of background check, do we need the additional layer?
Well,
'Cause
then
like I
all I have
said-
to do
Not
is say, I'm
everything's gonna go-
Airbnb, and I have one.
Yeah, it says that Airbnb, now this is just one of the
Oh.
companies. It says its users background check when they first sign up on their platform.
So when they
So-
sign up, they get a background check. Now, the flip side to that is our local boarding room house,
I'm just gonna say,
that one doesn't necessarily have a background check, and you don't know who you're renting from, and there is no additional security type stuff there. So
we're just raising our standard to Airbnb.
if you're an Airbnb, if you're registered with Airbnb, and I imagine what's the other one?
VRNBO or whatever.
VRBO or whatever,
Yeah.
probably does something similar. So if you're registered with them,
You don't need to.
you
submit
wouldn't need to submit one, but if you are a boarding room that's just advertising word of mouth type stuff, then we would want one.
because
I
we're
think-
talking short-term rentals, not just
Right.
B&Bs. In fact, we're not talking B&Bs, because remember, we're taking that out of our rules. and
Right.
regs.
So, I mean,
But if you're registered with a company that has that requirement, that component, you
That-
would not have to supply it additionally.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. First, so what would be the enforcement mechanism, and how often would they be required to have these background checks?
I think in our original draft, it
It's
was
just to submit the permit.
initially when they applied for the permit
So one time,
one time.
a one-time,
I believe that's the way it was worded in the draft.
Yes.
If the village is taking on some sort of like responsibility with a background check, is the village then like liable if something happens?
I think we were asking them,
Mhm.
it's paid for by the applicant, so they get a BCI or FBI background check and submit it to us.
Yeah,
That's
I'm just saying, like, if we're trying to, are we like trying to provide some sort of assurance that like,
No, just to me.
that's a good point.
Well,
Yeah.
and that was the reason why we didn't want to do a license and just do a permit, which is basically just, the idea of the permit was that they were registering with the village to where we knew they were conducting, that type of business. But that was part of the permitting process. But we did it that way potentially to try to alleviate the liability, something along that line.
But if someone would slip through the cracks per se, could the village potentially be held liable?
They probably wouldn't have applied for a permit.
Yeah,
Well, but I
Yeah,
mean,
well, my
Okay, Mr. The legal position.
Yeah, my argument would be, it's a permit, so you're crossing the Ts and dotting the Is. The village asked for a background check and one was provided. Now,
Admit that component.
I get to Brandy's question, enforcement mechanism. If we are asking for a background check, under what conditions do we deny a permit based on your background check? Or do we not care? We just want you to give it to us so that we can say, hey, yeah, this guy just got out of prison. Or is the intent to say, no, this guy just got out of prison for 9 years for kidnapping, and so we're not going to give him a permit?
mhm.
yeah, there should be like criteria if you have a background check. Not anything that shows up on your background check is gonna deny it. It's just XYZ, or whatever, sexual offenses or something.
Crimes of violence.
Domestic.
And we didn't get to any of that in our draft.
Right.
Just,
But here, so
yes, I agree.
here-
There needs to be something beyond that.
here's where we can start to go down the rabbit hole, though. Okay, sexual offense is easy enough to define. Crime of violence, easy enough to define. Except for the fact, if I said, hey, the reason I chose kidnapping, everyone would think that that is a crime of violence.
It's not.
It is not. I cannot use kidnapping to enhance other violent crimes. So if we only said sexual offenses and crimes of violence and someone just got out of prison for kidnapping, we
They
could
slip
not
through the
deny it.
cracks.
Right.
What about drug trafficking?
It's not a crime of violence.
Right.
Hmm.
So when we say background checks, and if we want to do something with it, then we got to figure out what you're going to do with it.
You gotta be explicit.
You got to be, your permit will be denied if you have this.
Well, let me ask you this, you're a legal professional. The term passing a BCI background check, what does passing imply?
Depends on who you're working for.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was a normal standard for that.
Now, when you say a passive background check, so when you get a background check, it's literally just where someone's been arrested and what the judicial outcomes are, and if they did any jail time or prison time stuff. Most of that is public record anyway. So when you say pass it, there's obviously a different standard for if you're a day laborer on the street department and at ODOT, and all you're going to be doing all day is mowing lawns along 70 from one edge of the state to the other.
Right.
Versus, someone handling money versus someone working with kids.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was just a standard that's what that implied.
I think
That does muddy water.
That was a good question, Ken.
Yeah.
So I guess we need the list of all the things that can show up that would be objectionable.
So what would show up would be anything in Title 29 of the Ohio Revised Code, or any municipal ordinance for which a person was arrested and fingerprinted. Most of those correspond with revised code stuff. What this committee would have to do is go through each one of those offenses and say, no, we don't want to grant a permit if you have this. But then we got to be careful because it's not always clear cut.
So my question is this, it sounds to me like this is a research item. Do we want to take this particular topic and have me go out and research those that require background checks, what they're looking for, and then come back and give you examples?
That sounds like great homework for you,
Yeah.
Terry. You're offering to do that?
Well, I want it to be right too, you know, and I want it to be enforceable and understandable. So I'm good with that.
I appreciate that.
All right, so we'll move on from background checks, do some research on those that have them, what they do with them, and how
How it's handled.
handled.
I did notice that on my paperwork, it said B was copy of the Ohio Secretary of State Articles of Incorporation. Are we saying that that's not a requirement?
Well, we were trying to decide exactly what that should say.
Or should it not say anything?
I personally feel like there should be something there, but I'm not sure how it should be worded.
From your business.
I know we had talked about it should be registered with the Secretary of State or whatever, but I'm not sure that implies anything.
Well, right, and that's what I was getting to a few minutes ago, is we can either say you're registered with the Secretary of State, which means you've either filed a fictitious name or articles of incorporation, or it's just with us and you're registering with us.
Right.
There isn't, for a short-term rental, there isn't a statewide license like if it were a hotel or motel.
So, see, I'd like to strike B, then the copy of Ohio Secretary of State Articles of Incorporation.
I agree. I think the owner would be enough information there.
Yeah,
The owner of the
the
property.
permit from the village would be,
Yeah, because
because I know Rick has mentioned that, you know, the short-term rentals bring people to the community, and I would be intimidated by having to go through the Articles of Incorporation to do all that. I'd just say, oh, forget it, I won't do it. And, you know, maybe there are a little more aggressive people out there willing to go through all that, but I guess I don't see the need for that I don't see the need for them to do that, for us to issue them a permit.
I imagine a lot of them are operated under LPs or LLCs or single sole proprietorships, not.
Right, and like I said, the ones that we've classified as commercial that are renting out an entire unit or building are probably set up in a business structure. And those renting the spare mother-in-law suite or room are probably just a sole proprietor Schedule C.
Yeah, I agree with Kay that it should not, you know, register with the Secretary of State, Articles of Incorporation. We should not have that in there. We should strike that.
All right, so we're going to strike that. Let me open up my draft here and strike that.
For 2C insurance coverage, what kind of coverage? I guess?
Liability.
General liability
Mhm.
insurance, 300,000. What if it's like just like a sole proprietor, like if it's just like they're not gonna have like a separate policy? I guess you just want that homeowner.
Yeah,
Homeowner
the
policy.
homeowners. I know Mr. Foreman mentioned that his was much higher than that.
I can't remember if the other that rent out their mother-in-law suite,
I don't think they commented on that.
I can't remember if they did or not.
I didn't circle that as a major bone of contention. I do remember Mr. Pullman saying that this was much higher than that.
Yeah.
But I think if we don't put something, then people will say, well, you didn't require me to have anything.
Right.
Yeah, and, you know, all the others I've looked at are all requiring minimum of 300,000. And I think that's probably a good place to be.
All right.
No, okay, we're gonna do research on D, the background check, and
Yes. Research on the background check,
yeah,
and that gets us,
then the fire plan.
For 2E, for the fire plan,
Mhm.
who reviews that for the owner, for the non-commercial?
so, and that was one of the ones we talked about, that it's submitted, but it's not one that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not one that I think we were asking the fire department to go do an actual inspection.
No,
We were
right.
just-
It
we-
says the village administrator will schedule a plan walkthrough.
Yeah. So part of like like when Terry does a building permit and she does the walkthrough, part of the walkthrough would be, okay, here's your fire plan. It says there's an exit door right there. There's an exit door. We're good.
I'm supposed to turn left at the corner, and,
Yeah.
you know, the ones we all had at school. Fire drill, where to go.
Yep.
This one.
But then along those lines, Terry, for the commercial ones, as part of the commercial inspection, the fire department would do that with the commercial inspection.
That is correct. If it's deemed a commercial rental, it would go through Fairfield Building, and then if not, then it would go through us. Yes.
All right. What about parking? As I'm scrolling through our numbered list here. I mean, there were some comments on parking. Not a lot.
Can we address that at all?
We just say sufficient off-street parking as provided in 1272.1.
Oh, there, I see it. Sorry.
To me, parking is one of those things that I think we say that, and then if most of the time, it's not going to be an issue. The renting out the mother-in-law suite, you've got one bedroom there. How many cars can you have? The other ones tend to have, and I know Rick had over the festival weekend, it was pretty full up there, but all the cars fit in the lot, or he had them in the yard.
They were all
Um,
off street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all off street. And so didn't seem to be a problem.
So is this one of those that we just need a definition of a plan, but not a mark
don't-
for person one, person two, person three, or just
For
what
parking?
No, I think
Park
the
on
sufficient
street.
off-street parking
Yeah,
says it.
Yeah,
I believe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good, no.
I think most of this is covered in manuals, which Airbnb requires. They have to have a plan, a written plan posted
For parking.
for parking. But they also have to have it, I was reading, for fire too. They're
Mhm.
supposed to have, I should say, best practices. They should have a fire plan just
Yes.
in their notebook of information, which is always right there when you walk into.
and so our Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rentals will already have a lot of this information. The boarding house will have to develop it.
Right.
All right. There was one, I'm gonna jump ahead to the penalty. There was one comment I remembered where they talked about $1,000 per day. It doesn't mean the violation is $1,000 per day,
Fine, up to.
up to. And that way, if there is a violation, it would give the court leniency and flexibility. some people, a small violation, you know, $10, $50, $100, $200 a day, but the next time you come back, maybe it becomes $200.
That
You
would
know,
all be spelled out.
But yeah, but it's up to $1,000. And I think that was just a misreading on the people. You know, $1,000 a day can be kind of scary if, you know, hey, I get a violation, I'm gonna get a fine of $1,000. And no, it's up to.
For the chronic person, it could become.
It
that
could
high.
become $1,000 a day.
So will this go back to a public hearing before?
No,
goes back
it goes to council, right?
It'll go to council,
Okay.
and then whatever this committee sends to council, they will have a public hearing on. So there will be whatever changes are made. I mean, we've already made one change. If there are any other changes, those will go to council, and then there'll be another public hearing to be able to have those commented on.
And then council can change it or throw it away.
Right. They have the same options you guys have: approve it, change it, and approve it, or not pass it. The only difference is if they don't pass it, it doesn't become law. Yep.
I think as far as the fee goes, a tiered structure makes more sense. It'll probably be a little more accepted by the owners than just seeing $1,000. Like,
Yeah, well, it's up to, and that way the court has discretion.
yeah, I just mean like when it goes to council and whatever they approve should define the tiered fees. And it
Wait,
might be a
well,
little
but-
Are you talking
It's the
fees or
judge
fines?
decides.
Oh, I think that should be in the code.
Well, it makes it takes away the flexibility of the old codes have fines in there. You do this, it's $50 fine. You do this, it's a $75 fine. The problem is there's not a lot of flexibility there. And sometimes you get a violation where the person has to pay $50 and it's not really a $50 crime because it's just some stupid little oversight technicality, but it's a technical violation. So that takes away the court's ability to say it's a $5 fine or it's no fine. And then it also takes their ability away to say, you know what, I've seen you in here, you know, once every 6 months for the past 2 years with this same violation. It's now going to be $1,000 a day because you keep coming back. And I'll tell you, in the class I teach for magistrates in court, if you have a fine structure, you're looking for trouble from the Ohio Supreme Court, because you can't have a fine structure, because a fine structure means you're not individually determining the person's ability to pay, as well as the purposes and principles of sentencing.
Okay, so we don't go. Maybe we need to expand the language, because you're right. Well, all they see is the $1,000 number in the text, and that makes them say no. Whereas maybe if we expanded the language a little bit so that they maybe had to read and realize that it isn't just every time going to be $1,000.
Wow.
So, who's our wordsmith that can work on that?
Well, I guess I have a problem with that, because to me, it's clear.
I
In
know.
violation may be fined up to $1,000 per day. It's optional, may be fined, and
I
up
know, we
to.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, or maybe you put in there up to a maximum of, or something like that, even though, yes, I agree that it's kind of cut and dried still.
I'm
I'm not sure there's anything
Yeah.
to that.
maybe one more sentence of explanation.
So, okay, well, we could try to come up with something. All right. Is there anything else we want to discuss on short-term rentals tonight?
No, I think I can wait for the research.
I have a question about like kind of how the process is written. It's written as like the owners would submit an application and they do A, B, C, E, and then it comes to BZA. So every one of these applications comes to BZA to review. to
So does
approve,
it just come to Terry?
Now,
Yeah.
no, it wouldn't go to BZA. It's a conditional use in all districts. So long as their application and use complied with what is written, it gets a,
Approved by Terry.
okay,
well,
so the BZA's
But
approving this.
Hold on a sec.
It is worded saying it has to go through BZA.
our zoning code says conditional uses go through BZA. You are right. I'm getting my zoning codes confused.
So we're not approving the permits.
You're
Or
approving the
approving.
conditional use upon Terry's approval of the permit.
Right. I understand.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And so there's that extra
So,
step there. And of course, the conditional use, once it stops, it ceases. So if they don't do it for a while, they'd have to bring it back. Which is something to consider because we have a fee for conditional use applications, and we're going to have a fee for this. And I don't want to double ding people.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for a permit, and then part of that permitting process is to get your, conditional use okay. It needs to be that one cost. I don't want to hit them in two different places for this.
do we need to make that, do we need to spell that out somewhere?
I think we should, because it's going to be an exception to our fee schedule. If you're applying for a short-term rental permit, part of that process is a conditional use approval. And there's a fee with that, and that fee should not be accepted, but should be part of that permit. Something else we may want to consider. I'm glad you brought that up, Ken, but it sends us down this fun little hole.
I'm good at that.
So, yeah, because once you get a conditional use, now BZA's options on a conditional use are a little more stringent than a variance. You are to check that this, and this are all satisfied. And then if so, you have to approve it. And I'm waiting for my zoning code to pull. I can't remember if you can put conditions on it or not. So with regards to approving a Airbnb conditional use or short-term rental, I should say, conditional use, we may want to look, is there, the permit has been applied for and is satisfactory before it gets here. It just got to flesh out that
Number 4 says
process.
any other conditions as warranted by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Right.
So we do have conditions in our,
Sounds like we can.
In our
make them up
conditional
as we
use.
Go along. I don't want to have to do that.
right,
Excuse me.
which may be something we do on a short-term rental one. Maybe the committee wants to say on a short-term rental one, if the permit application is satisfactory and complete, and it meets that, we grant it and not have and restrict ourselves from having that ability to add those other conditions, because we don't want to get into that every time.
Did I hear Rick's name, voice?
You did.
Okay.
You're saying that it is a conditional use, but it's not. It's completely not addressed.
In the code that is being proposed, a short-term rental in all zoning districts would become a conditional use.
Conditional use.
It's not addressed.
It's in section 3 to amend 1270, short-term rental, agricultural, R1, R2, R3, MRV, OI, DMU, conditional use. To update it from there.
So I bought a house with a monument in the front yard that said Baltimore House Bed and Breakfast. And I spent a lot of money renovating it. And now you're going to tell me I can't use it as it has been used for over a decade.
No one said you can't
Without-
use it.
But
And
you're going
the
to
idea-
require me to do a lot of other things. So
in a condition.
That's why I just say, when you pass this, I'm just going to turn it over to my lawyer, because this is insane. This is crazy.
All right. Well, I guess then if we're at that point where you say you're going to get legal counsel involved, we'll be done with comments from Mr. Foreman, and we'll continue on with our discussion.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, but just to clarify, it is changing to a conditional use in all of those areas. And so,
Right. And if I remember right, when we had talked about this before, when Mr. Foreman asked to change the zoning, we had discussed that and said we didn't need to because it was a conditional use. So I don't see where that's a problem for him. I don't know if he's still with us right now or not, but I think we already discussed this, and we've already all agreed that it all worked for him without having to change anything. And that's what I remember.
I would agree.
Obviously, I'm still here.
Okay.
okay.
Well, you heard that then. So do you agree with that?
I guess I need to hear that again, because I bought a house that had been used for this purpose for a decade, and I've done nothing really significantly different than what had been done before. And now all of a sudden it's a problem. And maybe that has to do with the Market Street overlay, which I agreed with getting rid of because I thought we could rezone accordingly. So maybe some of that's on me, maybe, but help me understand that.
Well, just to make sure you heard what I said before was, when we had brought this up before and you had brought it up, wanted to change the zoning, we discussed that it didn't need to be rezoned because it was already conditional use. So therefore, that allowed you to operate as you are without changing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that took care of it. That allowed you to do what you're doing without rezoning.
So none of this has anything to do with my property at all? Is that what we're saying?
Well, and none of this was brought on by your property. I mean, this you're conducting business that has to do with this ordinance, but you know this isn't here because of your property. No,
it actually was because Jim brought this to Terry and said they're not zoned for that. They can't do that there. That's how this whole conversation started, was they can't do that because it's not zoned for that. That's, in my mind, how this conversation started. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, fine. I'll just drop out of this and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, because that's what brought me to this conversation.
Well, and I think what brought you to this conversation as well is that you are operating one of these businesses that is new, that we are evaluating and trying to figure out what, if anything, and obviously we have something here that we want to do, and you are operating one. But there are others in the village that do it as well. I guess I kind of reject your premise that, you know, that this is all about you. If you were the only Airbnb renter in the village, then maybe so, but you're not. There are others that do it. There are others that want to do it. And there are other short-term rentals that are not advertising online, either through Airbnb or VRBO. And so it's not about one particular person or property. It's about what is in the best interest of the village with regards to short-term rentals in this emerging industry.
And that's fine. I never have ever said it's all about me, but me or my property is what brought this to the forefront. I mean, the other people would not have been involved had I not reached out to them and said, hey, you need to pay attention here because they're going to try to start regulating or passing ordinances about what you're doing. So what brought this to the conversation was me. So it's not about me. That's fine. I got it. But what brought this to this committee was my property. So it's not about me. That's fine. I got it. But
All right.
that's why we're talking about it.
But Mr. Foreman, if I can say something, I believe what they're trying to say is one thing that's come up is your particular business is not one that's being considered to be delinquent or need to be rezoned. So you just happen to be a business in the community that's related to the topic at hand.
What brought it to the forefront was, is he zoned for that? That
Well,
was what brought it to. Terry,
All right.
can you weigh
I'm
in on
going to
this?
stop. I'm going to stop it right now because it's getting late. I don't care why it came to the committee. I don't care if it was your property or the other Airbnb's property or what. It came to the committee and it's here. So we're
And that's
moving
fine.
on. And I got to go find my charger or we're going to lose Terry. I don't have a charger. Uh-oh.
I do. Oh, here, I do.
It was nice attending the meeting.
As she
All right.
fades away, like the.
That
So
Isn't
if
that-
you're gonna lose me, I
I-
just want to say,
mine-
everybody
mine's an
that's
older
in the
one.
room, everybody that's in the room, thank you very much for your patience, you know, with my condition and not wanting to be in a crowd. I appreciate it. It doesn't keep me from doing my job. It just keeps me from being very social. So thank you very much for your tolerance.
All right.
Oh, not
So-
a problem.
Since it is 8:45 and my battery is dying and I did not bring my charger, does everybody want to just call it a night and leave the next discussion item for the next meeting? When we
Yeah.
get some research? And I'll
Yeah.
bring my charger next
I
time.
would-
Send him a text to remind him, Terry. Charger.
All
Okay.
right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn very abruptly?
I move that we adjourn before the battery's dead.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, 5-0, we're adjourned at 8:47. And I'll get this stopped hopefully before it dies. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later, Terry.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.